Yes, sir.
Okay. Hello. Good evening to all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I think we're sorry for the few minutes delay. We are trying to get the national president on the line, and he's not able to connect. I think he was there for some time, and he's not able to connect. Now, I think in the meanwhile, I think I'd like to say welcome to all of you, and it's nice to have three important speakers from US, UK, and India, and the National Council members of the ISTD, and the participants from across various places, both in India, outside India. I would also like to acknowledge, before we start this program, the National Office of ISTD, headed by the director, for making all arrangements, including the marketing of this program, and also the national president, who will join us in between to grace this occasion, and also all others who have worked with me in conceiving this program in the last 15 days' time. I don't want to mention the names of the people, except that I want to acknowledge all of them, and the speakers who have taken time to communicate with us in the last 1 week's time to zero in on what exactly we have. I think we have probably registered one of the record number of participants of this program, and I hope most of them joined, if not all of them. And I don't want to really touch upon the theme, because we are trying to talk about training and development as a major function that will evolve during and post-COVID, which has taken the entire world by shocks and variety of challenges. And I'm sure training professionals have a lot to do. And one of the reasons that we wanted to do it on behalf of the Indian Society for Training and Development is that I think a lot of professionals are going to change gears, as I mentioned, COVID and post-COVID. And therefore, we have invited very, very eminent, very successful, very able people, 3 of them. And I just want to briefly explain to you how exactly we will be doing this. We have 3 speakers. Dr. Ronald McKinley, whom we call Ron in our communication, Mr. Graham Hastings Evans, whom we call Graham, and Arun Dinakar Rao Arun. They are the speakers, and they would be introduced to you by a team of 3 respondents who are also very eminent, very capable, very competent professionals in the field of training and development. And one is Rajalakshmi from Chennai chapter of ISTD, and she's called Raji. Arvind Kode, who has worked with me very closely in conceiving this program. Arvind, we call him. He's from Baroda, what we call Vadodara. And we have Poonam Jindal from Hyderabad, where I live. She's the secretary of the ISTD Hyderabad chapter. Now, what we have done to ensure that we don't lose a lot of time, we have assigned Raji to Ron. Repeat, Raji to Ron, Arvind to Graham, Poonam to Arun. They will coordinate with them, and their primary responsibility will be introducing the speakers in a little detailed manner. And at the end of all the 3 speakers, each one of them would ask the speaker maximum of 2 questions, clarifications. Thereafter, we leave this discussion open to the audience, the delegates from across. Depending on the time, we will choose the number of questions that can be asked. We probably will be forced to limit the questions. Then finally, we go to each of the speaker after the end of all this question and answers. We will request each speaker to make one delivery, one statement, which can be the takeaway for all the papers who are present in this meeting. And with this, I invite all of you to join this meeting and request Raji to begin introducing. Raji.
Happy evening all. Thank you, Mr. Gangadharan. It gives me an immense pleasure to introduce Ronald McKinley, who is holding a PhD with SPHR, over 25 years of experience as a Chief Human Resource CHRO, where more than 35 years of experience in the field of human resource management across medical and hospitality industry. He is also a former Marine and Vietnam veteran. McKinley has PhD in Administration and Management, MBA in HR and BS in Management. He holds a Senior Professional in Human Resource Lifetime Certification. He is the former chair for the ISO Technical Committee 260, Human Resource Management, where he led the effort to create and publish multiple international human resource management standards, including ISO 30401 Knowledge Management System requirements. He has also served on many boards such as the Urban League of Cincinnati, Ohio. Dr. McKinley has written and published many articles and delivers numerous presentations throughout the United States and abroad, such as knowledge management for NASA. He has also served as a professor of management at several prestigious universities, such as Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Ron, nice meeting you, Ron, after a long time, and we are looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I should go ahead and start. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to touch on 5 areas. I'll just name them very quickly. I'll list them quickly. The first one is the changing nature of work and the growing shift of on-site work related to the shift from on-site work to remote work.
Somebody's talking, Guru. Yeah.
Guru, can you please either mute everybody from the central control panel, or a quick request to people who are on the call, kindly mute yourselves. And please unmute yourself only when we reach the Q&A stage. That will be highly appreciated.
All right.
Dr. Sir, I think you're not unmute, so there's a voice coming from your side.
Whose side?
Dr. Sir, he's joined.
All right. So I'll go ahead and so hopefully we can do that. The second one is the growth of remote work driven by market forces and that have been exacerbated by COVID-19. The implications of the growing shift to remote work as it affects training and development. The needed evolution of training and development methods to meet the requirements necessitated by the changing nature of work itself, and the implications this shift will have on training and development professionals. I think those are a number of meaty topics that we could probably spend hours talking about each one. But as many of us know, as I'm sure most everyone knows on this particular meeting, that the nature of work has been changing over time anyway, prior to COVID-19. And that there has been, in much of the world at least, a shift towards off-site work versus on-site work, especially for professionals in what we'll call the knowledge professions. As you also may know, the means of production now, who owns the means of production has shifted quite radically over the last decades from a few capitalists, if you will, who have the money, who own all the means of production, to now it being quite distributed in the population in general. So for instance, I suspect that 95% or more, perhaps all of the folks on this particular webcast have own their own means of production. They have a computer, they have access to internet, they have access to organizations, even ones that they don't directly work for. And given this, if you will, the changing nature of work, more and more professionals are working for themselves and doing contract work, if you will, interim work, temporary work with sometimes called freelance work for other organizations. What is still very clear is that everyone still needs to have access to some organization. However, people do not need to be directly employed by those organizations in order to provide services for them. So that's been going on for some time, and I think COVID-19 has exacerbated that quite a bit. Because I know, for instance, here in the United States, there are many people now working from home who, before COVID-19, went to their workplace every day and had what I'll call a traditional work setting. However, the nature of the work itself lends itself to be able to be done from any location. You don't have to be in a centralized place. This has many ramifications for the cost of doing business. Obviously, if more people can work from remote areas, even not driven by some pandemic, for instance, then that will actually cost less money in the long run. That also, though, then talks about the need for people to, if you will, take a look at the the skills that are necessary for people to effectively work in a remote situation. So I've already actually covered the first two, the nature of work, how it's shifting, the growth of remote work driven by market forces that was already happening anyway, because many people were already working remotely. And then it's been exacerbated by COVID-19. And I suspect it's possible it could be exacerbated further by any additional pandemics or other types of things that might occur. The implications, I think, of this growing shift to work affects training and development. People, I believe, need to be actually trained how to work effectively remotely, because much of that and their interaction then is going to be done like we're doing it today through using information technology in order to communicate more effectively. And people need to be trained how to use the technology so that everything is done in a very good way. And people need to have the technology that will actually work, and they need to have the types of things that support that technology. For instance, if you're remotely working and relying on the internet for lots of connectivity, then your internet access needs to be of a speed compatible with or comparable to the speeds that you would find in a modern office place, so that the technology itself then that's designed to support the interaction between people working remotely actually does that in a more efficient and effective way. So I think these are some of the implications. And that means that there needs to be an evolution, I believe, in the methods that training development professionals employ in order to properly equip the remote workforce. Now, I don't know what the specific percentage of the workforce is today working remotely, but I do know that it's growing. And I think that's probably a study that needs to be done, I've not seen one. It would be interesting to see a study that actually would give us those types of data that we could use to further our development of training and development methodologies that will actually support the growth and health, if you will, of remote work. So the methodologies themselves need to be looked at, and how the training is delivered, and ensure that there are proper demonstrations, if you will, of competency, that people working remotely have the competence in order to do that effectively. Working at home, if you will, is not the same as working in an office place. I think anyone that's done both of those knows that that's true. So there are different dynamics that exist in an office setting or in an industrial setting versus the setting that a person might have at home. And so, for instance, some of the skills that people who are working remotely need to learn is, so if you have dogs or children, things like that, you wouldn't be bringing your dog to work, and you wouldn't be having your children generally there in the workplace in a meeting that's taking place. So those are the kinds of things that people need to be trained and coached on. Then I think the implications then of the shift then on training development professionals themselves is that training and development professionals also need to be retrained with regard to the methodologies that the emerging methodologies I think that need to occur in order for effective training and development to take place, so that the society is better served by having a competent, well-trained, and efficient remote workforce. So those are the 5 key things. I moved that very quickly because we didn't have that much time to speak, and I want to make sure I leave enough time for any questions. Thank you.
Raji, are you online?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, thank you. Are you able to hear me? I'm kind. Thank you, Ron, for those nice introduction talk. It's really interesting. There are a lot of messages already coming, appreciating what you said, the side messages. Now I request, the next speaker, Arvind Kode, who has been instrumental in putting up this program along with me there. Arvind, now take over.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gangadharan. I have a great pleasure in introducing Graham to the group. Before I introduce him, let me just tell you that he is the managing director, group managing director of NOC in UK. And ISTD has a very strong bond with NOCN, about which I'll speak a little later. As you all know, we have ISTD members as also non-ISTDians in this event. The core function of ISTD being training and development, we have 50 years of existence, and the thing that we pride for is our diploma in training and development. It's an highly received program, and in the Golden Jubilee year, in this year, we have gone global. We have introduced certification courses for L&D professionals, for which we have partnership with NOC and UK. The L&D professionals programs are for certification, international certification of trainers, training managers, and training consultants. These are premium courses that are jointly certified by ISTD and NOCN, and the courses enjoy an international recognition. In the present situation arising out of COVID-19, we would also be offering these courses online. That is how we have a strong bond with NOCN, and we're fortunate in having their MD with us, who will guide us through the evening. NOCN is an education and skill charity, an assessment, validation, and awarding organization. Graham, the full name being Graham Hastings Evans. Graham held senior managerial positions in the industry in challenging times in UK and internationally. He worked in the areas of management development, workforce training, employment, and skill programs. He is the president of British Association of Construction Heads, and he also chairs the Association of Employment and Learning Providers in UK. NOCN's activity are worldwide covered. They operate largely in South Africa, in Europe, Thailand, besides a lot of tie-ups with Indian organization, ISTD being one of them. It is great having Graham on this platform, and we have much to share from him. Over to you, Graham, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Amin. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. With us, it's lunchtime. I guess it's breakfast time in Texas, but with us, it's lunchtime. I probably will be covering similar sorts of areas that Ron covered, but from a slightly different perspective. And you mentioned NOCN and our international remit as an awarding and assessing body, a certification body, credentialing they call it in America. When COVID came and our Prime Minister announced that we all had to go and work from home or close down, I have an organization of 171 staff, 300 professional domain experts, so nearly 500 people out of 3 offices in the UK, and we have a small office in Delhi. We have a subsidiary there in India. And within 48 hours, we had to move the whole of our operation, onto the cloud, yes. We were a long way down that particular road, but we've now functioned for the best part of 8 weeks without going into an office, all 500 of us. So meetings like this are really common. We use MS Teams. And I think we have found ourselves that the COVID challenge has also presented the opportunities for changes in the way we all work together. This event itself is an excellent example of that. Yes? The other week I attended a policy conference on government policy for skills in the UK. It was done on a webinar like this. 6 months ago, we'd have all gone on a train to Birmingham and gone to a conference centre and actually met that way. So I think we are all going to change. The world is going to change. We in the UK, we refer to the challenge of COVID as a war against COVID. And we all know that during periods of conflict, humans move forward in technological terms in leaps and bounds. You know, necessity drives the changes. And I think we see that with COVID. The world that we left in February 2020 will not be what the world is like of work in February 21. Very, very different. As Ron has mentioned, I think the whole way that we work, the way our economies work, the way that we interrelate with each other across different countries is going to fundamentally change. And we are going to use the benefits of the technology that has been there for some while, in truth, yes. But some of us older gentlemen, I notice on Zoom, may not have been aware of. But I think we're going to see this leap. I think we're going to see less air travel, and that's not a bad thing from the planet's perspective. Less people getting in their cars to go to offices, less people getting on trains. So I think there are some fundamental changes in the way that we will work. Massive challenges economically, because this is an enormous economic structural change that's going to befall the world. Yes, there'll be a slump, but the way that economies and industries work afterwards will be very, very different. And I don't think it will all be completely new. I think what will happen is certain things will expand, you know, whereas perhaps in some sectors, off-site manufacturing was a small part of what they did. In the future, it will become most of what they do. So I think we're going to see very different challenges in the way each of the sectors work. In leisure, I think we will still have face-to-face. Yes, we'll still go to restaurants, we'll still go into hotels and on holidays. We will still want personal service from people that smile at us and have you had a nice day, and you know, did you enjoy the meal, and all of those sorts of things. So I think in certain sectors it will return to something that's a little bit more like it is now. But and that's true of probably personal services, beauticians, hairdressers, things like that. However, in some areas like retail, we will see a massive shift, and we are already seeing it. Yes, for about the first week after our lockdown, the only vehicles on the road were Amazon vehicles. Yes, driving stuff around to people's houses that they'd ordered on the web. So I think we will see the fundamental changes in sectors like retail, where people have been used to going to shops and markets, and I love the Indian markets, Khan market and the others. I love to go and shop there, but I think we will see people shift to more and more online purchases. Yes, and so that will, it's not new, but it will accelerate. It will become greater. Financial services, I think the same will happen. We will use technology in a fundamentally different way. In areas like construction and engineering, where we might think, and I come from the engineering and construction industry, that's my background originally, before I moved into education and skills. So a lot of experience at apprenticeships and things like that, and skill development in industry. We will also see fundamental changes. We will start to see people not going to a construction site, yes, or even everybody going to a factory to make things. We will see more things made in factories. So I think you call it in India pre-engineered construction. They call it elemente construction in the north of Europe. We call it off-site manufacturing. So instead of going to a site and building a house or building something, you will build most of that, as they do in Sweden and the Nordic countries. Lots will be made in a factory, and pieced together very quickly out on site. That happens around the world. I think we will see a vast movement to more and more and more of that. And that will use robots, it will use AI, it will use different manufacturing production methods, as will traditional engineering manufacturing production. So I think COVID will start to push the boundaries. Yes, if we have loads of people in a factory all trying to do something small with a little engineering tool, we're going to have difficulties. What you will see is there may be few people in a factory, probably highly skilled, yes, who can control the robots, who know how to do it, that aren't going to fall over each other, that can be 2 meters apart for social distancing and all of those things. So I think the technology in these different sectors will drive big waves of changes, absolutely quite critical ways of changes. And that will mean our people will need new skills. Yes, some of the old traditional skills will die away, and we will need to move to people that have got much higher level of technology skill, and the use and exploitation of technology. I think we will need that. We will need people that can handle robotics, can handle CAD and drones and all of those sorts of things that are going to befall much of the different sectors. So I think we will shift from people that are perhaps have a low skill job at the moment. There will be less and less and less of those type of jobs available, and that will put a big demand on societies, because societies will be needing to train more and more of their people to a higher level, okay, if they're to avoid very high levels of unemployment and with that social unrest. So if we're looking for a different set of skills to drive our economy, it will become incumbent on governments to ensure that access to those skills, yes, and the ability to learn them is as open and as free as possible. And I think that will present a big challenge to everybody to make that sort of change. Quite an enormous challenge to many countries, particularly where you have low levels of numeracy and literacy to start with, yes, because in order to drive to these higher levels of skills, you do need people that have got a good level of numeracy and literacy and a good level of basic IT skills, yes, as a platform for any job that you work in the new post-COVID economy, that's world economy that is coming. I think it will also require people to work across continents and countries in a different way. You won't be flying to a country. We will be meeting like this more often. So I think that will change, and it will cause people to start to have to learn an almost different interpersonal skill. We are probably all used to meeting people, and I don't say we won't meet people in the new world, the post-COVID world, but we will meet people technologically in this sort of form much more often than we've been doing, and probably less physical contact in the sense of people driving places, getting on planes and trains and going to places. So I think that will cause us to develop a set of interpersonal skills and behaviors that we don't necessarily have. And I've noticed how quickly us in the UK have got used to Zoom, MS Teams. We use MS Teams a lot. There's GoToWebinar. There's quite a few of these things, and there's a different way of behaving on them, yeah, than you might do sat in a meeting or sat in a conference hall. So we're all starting to, in a funny way, learn new skills. And I think all of our people will need to learn the new skills to be able to work remotely, to be able to share. If I want to, just 3 months ago, if I wanted to talk through somebody in my finance department, and they wanted to show me a spreadsheet, we go into a room, they'd get the spreadsheet out, we'd all have a look at it. Now we share it on MS Teams, yeah, and I'm looking at it, we're moving it, and people will start to use the technology in quite a different way and start to develop very different interpersonal skills. I think that also then starts to impact what happens in training and assessment of skills. We've already started to see that dramatically. In order for us to start to teach people in the last few months, we've moved rapidly to online teaching. So a teacher now, yeah, they're sat at home in their study or their kitchen or wherever, and they're teaching a classroom of young people. They're even starting to teach people some practical things. There are times when people physically need to get to do something, but we'll start to see more of the use of simulation. We've seen pilots been trained by simulators, yes, in the past, and none of us think that's a bad idea. You wouldn't want to give somebody a jumbo jet and say, here's the keys, get on with it. See you in a couple of days' time. We put people in simulators. I think we're going to use more of that type of thinking to teach people to be masons and steel fixers and hairdressers and all sorts of things. We're going to start to use the technology to teach people. I think we'll have less people crowding into universities and B schools and technical colleges, as we call them here, community colleges, I think they're called in the States. So there will be an element of people going to a physical place to learn, but we're talking about fundamentally in the UK of just having people go to a physical building when they physically need to go to a workshop, yes, or a laboratory to do something, because that's the only way we can think of at the moment of them learning it, yes. But otherwise they won't. They will learn on the web through tutors using this type of tool to run the class. They don't have to go to a lecture theatre to start to learn. And so we are moving very rapidly to more and more delivery online here in the UK of all forms of teaching. And with that comes all forms of assessments and examinations. And we as an organisation have been developing online examinations with AI proctoring so that we can rapidly now test lots and lots of people. They can be sitting the exam at home, but we can check their ID so we know who they are, and we know that if they passed or they failed or whatever. So we started to use the technology to assess people's ability to do a particular job or a skill or pass an exam in English or maths or whatever it is. Whereas perhaps even just some months ago, people were sat in great big rooms but at desks writing away on exams and then being marked. That's not where we're now going. We'll just get everything done on a tablet. It'll be marked, it'll be scored, it can be done from anywhere, and it can actually be sat. The exam can be sat, or the test can be sat anywhere, as long as we know the person is the person, yes, and we can verify those. So all of that presents massive skill changes for tutors and for assessors to learn the new way of assessing people using the new technology. So that quite dramatic changes. We're also finding that as well as teaching people on how to do remote working, how to do online teaching, how to do online assessment, we've recently been asked by the industries in the UK to develop a set of courses for how does somebody work in an environment, a physical environment, and be COVID safe. Yes. So if you do work in an engineering manufacturing environment, if you do work on a construction site, you do work in a hairdresser's, yes, or a shop. How do you, as an operative, how do you work in a safe manner? How does your supervisor ensure that you're working safely? How does your manager understand what the risks are and the risk assessment they have done to ensure that you are safe and your customers are safe? So I think enormous changes coming about. I think when certainly we all reacted with a groan, oh my God, when COVID came. But I think we are now starting to see that it's going to accelerate our use of technology, and we will see some positive benefits out of what has been, a really quite a hard and very difficult period within our country, and we know in many other countries. Thank you very much for that.
Graham, thank you, Graham. Very detailed presentation that you made. Very wonderful points you taught. And we could see from the right side of your panel, so many questions to you. And I was just writing to them that it may not be possible for us to answer all those questions that are coming up. And I'm sure they can be addressed over a period of time. But if you people are going to be inspiring the attendees to ask so many questions, you can understand the impact. Everybody's anxious to do a lot of things, and they want to know what is it we can really do instead of waiting for more seminars to do that this way.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure there will be some time for people to ask questions, and I'm sure you will be kindly look into some of the questions.
Gagan, if you want to summarize the questions that people have raised, because I'm sure there'll be lots of people asking the same questions. I'm happy over the next days to put some answers to those, and then you can circulate them to people.
We'll be happy to do that, because there are a lot of very interesting questions are coming, because something new for it. Now it's time for me to introduce Nataraj, Dr. Nataraj, who has come. You can see him on the panel, and he is the national president of the Indian Society for Training and Development. He couldn't connect. He was there for some time, but they disappeared suddenly. Nataraj, kindly unmute and start. Unmute.
So some issue on his end.
No, he's now. I think he's not unmuted.
No, so it's unmute, but I think some issue with the headphone he's using.
Oh, sad. Okay, that's going to be a formality. Yeah, that's going to be sad.
Yes, sir.
She finished it.
I think some issue. So you are on mute now.
No problem. So we'll probably, Nataraj will ask him to talk once again, because we couldn't hear him. And
Yes,
we'll
sir.
ask him to talk once again, because at least before the conclusion of the session. Now the third person, Arun. Arun, this is Arun. Before you really start, one or two questions arising out of some of these discussions, in case you are able to, talk about upskilling, if you're able to do that. And what will happen to the traditional skills are the two important questions among all those questions that's come in. There are plenty of questions that are coming in, but I just thought I'll just post this to you. Now, welcome Arun. Now I'm requesting our Poonam to introduce him and then move on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gangadharan. Hello all, this is Dr. Poonam Jindal from ISTD Hyderabad chapter. I'm honored to have this privilege of introducing our next speaker, Arun Dinakar Rao. Arun is the Chief People Officer of Birlasoft. He has over 20 years of experience within the IT, ITES, finance, internet industries, and is widely regarded for his insight and opinions on bettering the human resource, learning and development, and talent management function. Arun has managed large-scale operations and is experienced in leading change management initiatives. Previously, Arun led the HR functions at DXC Technology India, and where he was responsible for aligning the people function to business objectives and help drive multiple post-merger integrations. Prior to DXC at Deloitte US offices of India, Arun led the HR function across multiple business lines, served as a chief learning officer, and was instrumental in smooth execution of key leadership development initiatives. He has also served the companies like Satyam Computers Limited and App Labs Technologies in the past. He holds a postgraduate diploma in personal management and industrial relation from XLRI Jamshedpur, and he is also an alumnus of University of Delhi. In his leisure time, Arun loves to be with nature and plans holidays in mountains. One thing what most of us don't know is his love for food, and he's also fitness freak. He's an avid reader of books around strategy and organizational excellence. I welcome you, Arun. Over to you now.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Honestly, I'm humbled. I'm humbled today to share a panel with people of the stature of Ron and Graham. And I saw in the participant crowd, Dr. T.V. Rao, who I used to consider and still consider a guru, and my association with him goes long time back. So it's indeed an honor, and I hope that I'm able to do justice to the 10 odd minutes that I will talk to all of you, sharing my own perspectives on what has really happened with this COVID outbreak and what is going to happen to organizations. And I'm going to come from a practitioner's view, how the various stakeholders in this entire game, the learner, the trainer, the organization, the manager, how do all of them kind of come together, and how do we need to ensure that effectiveness of training is maximized. Before that, Dr. Gangadharan asked me about upskilling. In my mind, there are two sides to upskilling, and you will pardon me that my referencing will be more to the IT industry, because I spent considerable amount of time in that space, at least about 20 odd years there, and my early career was in manufacturing. So I'll try to kind of bring a little bit of referencing to the manufacturing industry, but quite a bit of the referencing will be to the IT space. So when we come to upskilling, I think there are, like I said, there are two parts to it. One is something that both Graham and Ron touched about, and I want to re-emphasize. People will need to get more comfortable with technology, and like one of them said that honestly, I think we are lucky that quite a bit of advancement in learning delivery technology actually happened over the last many years. It's just a matter of fact that we were all so dinosaurish, if there were a word like that, in not embracing these technologies when we had an opportunity. Today it comes as a fait accompli. So whether it is MS Teams leading to shared Excel sheets for budgeting, or in your own houses, if you have children who are going to school or to college, you will see that the whole myth of classroom training has been busted, at least in the short run. I cannot stand guarantee whether that the effectiveness of a classroom interaction and that whiteboarding and stuff like that, whether that can be replicated in a remote learning environment for a long period of time. I, for one, cannot sit and predict that. But purely from a transactional perspective, all of you are witnessing the proliferation of technology in learning dissemination. When colleges and schools are embracing this, it is only but natural that business organizations have to take the lead in terms of taking it to the next level. However, I think the challenge really is in terms of understanding what do we do to impact learning, because this is not about just logging into some program and completing it. We need to understand there are two kinds of interventions that are possible. One is the synchronous learning, which is something like what we are doing right now, which is what happens when professors and school teachers take their classes on Zoom or whatever, go to webinar or whatever, where everybody is online at the same time, and there is one speaker who's kind of facilitating the session, and there are people who are spread across the globe and trying to follow that stuff. And the other is asynchronous, which is allowing people to kind of manage it at their leisure. And both have their pluses and minuses, but I think organizations would lean more towards the asynchronous learning methodologies and use the synchronous methodologies more as a flipped classroom environment. And I will talk to this flipped classroom environment in just a short while. It's just a jargon, but when you kind of bring in a hybrid learning environment, which is a mix and match of self-learning and facilitated learning, you basically get into a flipped learning model where most of the course content is delivered through asynchronous either e-learning modules or bit-sized learnings, bite-sized learnings, and then participants get into a room such as this, an electronic room such as this, and there is a facilitated discussion. But what are those 4 or 5 challenges that face the organization when they are embracing the training administration in a crisis-led environment where majority of workforce has become remote? For the employees, it is about keeping away from distractions. And Ron mentioned about that very early. How do you simulate an office environment while working at home? That is very, very essential. Being in the part of the country, part of the world that I am, I think we have a long way to go to simulate a work-life environment which is free of distractions at home. And for the participant employee, this becomes a very, very big challenge about this, creating this controlled environment and keeping the self-motivation on to sustain his or her levels of learning assimilation, if I may. For managers, they are already they are grappling with a new normal where they don't get to see the people. And given the fact that many managers are very, very high on control, need for control, this is a very problematic situation. And then they know that the people can get distracted. So for them, the natural disposition is, can they chunk the skills? Can they break the entire module that otherwise used to happen in a classroom over a day or 2 days? And can they create discrete modules and kind of pass them on to their employees so that they are sure that training assimilation is of the highest order? For the designers, I won't say that the past was easy, but the future is going to be very difficult, because how do you blend the entire pedagogy to keep the interest alive over whatever duration the module that you're designing? How do you think and behave like a consumer so that you are able to find out at what point of times you could actually see a dip in motivation and then bring in an intervention to spike it up? These are real life challenges that are going to face designers, and all the people who are in learning design space of the training and development function. I think they have a big task cut out for them. And obviously there is, within that, then they need to upskill themselves, they need to embrace technology and stuff like that. For organizations, all the above is true, but the next bit is, how can they bring in a concept which has gained momentum in the recent past about bringing in learning in the flow of work? Now, what does that mean? All of us need assistance. It is kind of taking it down to the granular level where the niceties of development are taken over by the exigencies of upskilling people to the task. So if I have a problem discharging a task, is there a toolkit? Is there a help module that will help me kind of to cross the hump, if you may, the skill hump? And this is kind of gaining momentum, because then it becomes easy for organizations to ensure that people get trained on the go and the investments are appropriately fashioned. There is absolutely no doubt that we will see a new order of skills that will be required. There's going to be automation, but I am also of the opinion that technology comes at a price. Technology is not cheap. So countries which have got the demographic dividend on their side and where cost of labor is not prohibitively expensive, I think they still have a little bit of runway where I don't see that all people will be displaced by technology. There will still be people who will be expected to come in and contribute to the assembly of the product. And I fully agree, there could be prefabrication, there could be breaking down of the assembly line, all that will happen. Number of people in the shift will come down because of social distancing and stuff like that. But given the fact that technology is at a particular price point, And as long as we can navigate under the price point and yet deliver quality material, I think for a labor surplus organized country like India, I think there's still some runway to go. I might be in minority on the panel or in this forum, but I strongly believe in that. But people have to continuously work on learning new skills. The threat of obsolescence is very, very high. That is, but that is not something that is just COVID induced. It is in general true. I think it is, and I'll kind of sum up at this point of time. I think training will now need to get personalized. I think it is important for organizations to understand that they need to leverage technology. They need to leverage tools to create programs and sub-programs that make sense to people and contribute to their learning journeys. I think we will see more and more, infusion of tools such as AI, AR, VR, so artificial reality, virtual reality, simulating, like Graham talked about the simulators. I think wherever people need to get hands-on, while the ITA space could have simulated labs online, but wherever people need to have exposure to workshops, I think we will see more and more infusion of talent such as what I said, because that is a good surrogate to lots of people getting into a workshop and trying to kind of play with material and tools. I think the sum and substance of this entire thing is that we are going to see not a gradual shift, but a tectonic shift from the classroom orientation that many of us grew up with, have continued to nurture, and we are going to get into a situation where you either are going to make a virtual connect with your audience or perhaps make no connect at all. Yet, as trainers, I think it is our duty to ensure that we continue to impart the skill, ability, and knowledge, help people in their competency journeys. And we need to find ways of leveraging technology to do that. I think one big part, before I kind of sum up, is something that might be an add-on opportunity for many of us who probably are on the behavioral side of training. I think the fact that people are no longer going to have access to large-scale socialization that exists in the past, I think that gives us a unique opportunity to impact people. And the reason I say that is because I have, in my own professional network, I am seeing that more and more organizations and more people are reaching out to EAP counselors. And I bring in that thing because people need help. People need help because they are faced with a situation and they did not see coming, but something that's going to remain with them for some time to come. And they will need help in terms of scaling up to the new reality. So it is possible that for the entrepreneurial people amongst us, you could actually build up a module which can help people address that. And I can assure you that it will be the shortest way you can become big time in the space of learning and development today. That's all I had to share with you today. It was a practitioner's perspective. I, for one, believe that there are more opportunities, and it is for us to leverage on those and not lead a life of regret when we reflect a few years from today on what happened post-COVID. Thank you so much, all of you, for listening to me. Thanks, Dr. Gangadharan, for giving me this opportunity. And one thing that I want to tell, that my introduction was far too tall for the person that I am. I'm a humble practitioner. I've learned my tricks of the trade by working with all of you, and I really enjoyed today sharing some of these perspectives with each one of you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Arun. It's all a pleasure to put all of you together. It's our pleasure to see a very interesting presentation going on, because I'm very sure the respondents have too many questions to ask you, and I don't think there's going to be time to ask so many questions, because so many interested people are there in the the side panel. So now I'm going to request Raji to start posing something to Ron to begin with. Raji,
Yes.
limit yourself
Thank
time. It is exactly 33. Probably we have all put together another half an hour to complete this program. So start on that, and we'll try to give some time for one or two faculty members. There are asking, a lot of people are asking questions. You may not be able to really put them together. So therefore, start. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. My question today is how learning method change from student to professional, and how technology can facilitate it.
And this is for Ron. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So that's a very good question. I agree with what the other speakers have said, both Graham and Arun, with regard to the need for and the change in technology. So if you think about then both students and teachers, if you will, trainers, professors, facilitators, whatever you're going to call folks that do that work, then will employ the same technology, but employ it in different ways. So for instance, right now we're having a synchronous conversation, if you will, or workshop or webinar about the changing nature of work that's been really exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. So, and this is a way to do it. One of the things I didn't mention earlier was that my daughter is a middle school teacher, and all of a sudden, and she's in Kentucky, and all of a sudden, they are no longer in the classroom, but they are teaching now online. Well, these teachers have not been trained to teach online. I happen to be a certified college online professor. In other words, I took a postdoctoral course on how to facilitate, if you will, to conduct, to develop, and then to manage and deliver courses online. So teachers and facilitators, trainers need to be trained how to do that in a good way and to use the proper technology. MS Teams is one technology, Zoom is another technology, and these are synchronous technologies. However, using Blackboard and eCollege are asynchronous technologies that enable you actually to do more than you can do in an hour of interaction in a Zoom meeting or what have you. So the implications then are both for students and teachers and trainers that they will need to employ the same types of technology but do it in quite a different way. So a trainer then who develops an asynchronous course that can be supported also by Zoom or MS Teams or other technology in a synchronous manner needs to be able to develop a course that is comprehensible and does what it is designed to do, that it has the learning objectives that are actually, the students are actually able to achieve and then demonstrate that they have the knowledge or skills development that's necessary for successful completion of that particular course. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I think that's certainly what all of us are going to have to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My second question would be on the, there are a lot of series of webinars that are witnessing today after COVID-19 in India across the globe, where in lockdown we have taught more to use micro-learning. So do you think this practice of micro-learning is here to stay for a long, or how the learning methodology would be?
All right, so this is my question also. So there's micro learning, micro work, if you will, micro units, all of those types of things. This, to my mind, is a trendy kind of a thing that now trends can sometimes become the mainstream, the ways of doing things and the ways of thinking about things. That's absolutely certain. However, so I think micro learning, if you will, where you learn small, if I understand it the way you've intended to be, you posited this question to me, is that there are small bits of learning that you have and done at small, in smaller increments, if you will, or in shorter periods of time. That's what the word micro, implies. And I think that's fine. It's learning is a cumulative process. Nobody learns everything all at once, and nobody learns everything. That's absolutely certain. And no one knows everything there is to know about anything. And in fact, most of us, we don't even know how much there is to know because we don't know what it is. And if we're lucky, we know a little bit, and we're able to help other people by sharing that small amount of information or knowledge that we have in ways that we think have been beneficial to us and hopefully will help other people. But so micro learning, I think, is here to stay. However, the notion that you focus on these things, I think that's one method, that's one approach. And also, I think you need to look not only at micro stuff, which would be the smaller stuff. So if you think of economics, for example, you have micro and macro economics. And you also need to understand the big picture. And especially for people who are working, I think, in distance working situations, they need to understand the picture and how everything is kind of connected to each other, and how what I do and don't do affects others in my work environment and then outside that environment itself in the general population. So that's also another long-winded answer. I apologize for that, but that's my thinking on that particular topic. Thanks.
Thank you, Ronald. Thank you. It's given a
You're
good
welcome.
insight. So Dr. Gangadharan, you muted your mic.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Haji and Ron, for being with us, and we'll request you to continue to stay with us. I'll now pass on to Arvind. Arvind and
Yeah, I'll integrate my questions, both the questions in one, and I would not limit it only for Graham to respond, but others also would be welcome to do that. What I'm going to ask is widely being covered by Arun, and he may have to add a few more aspects to this. My question is, how do we ensure training effectiveness in the remote online distance learning mode, with specific reference to India? Now, India sociologically has a different perspective as compared to other countries. We have great social interdependence. We're deeply involved with others. We are intensely emotional, and isolation is a great fear for us. Now, under this situation, the remote or distance learning would become a great challenge. And how do we look at it? Physical, we're very comfortable with physical classrooms. We have a close-knit social relations, and there's a touch and feel in the training when we have classrooms. Under the impersonal mode, how do we catch with the mood, emotions, body language of the participants? How do we assess the behavioral, attitudinal mapping of the participants? Remote learning for experiential learning, it's sans experiential learning, the physical activity, management games. I'm specifically referring to the behavioral or the managerial.
A methodology which we are trying to track now, which is a mixture of remote and workshop, team working, getting people together, which does give you the ability to see how people are interacting, to see how people are coping, and to get people to learn how to work with other people. We've had something called the Open University for many years, and they have a blend of classroom, workshop learning, and conferences, as well as home working or offline working. And I think it's that blend that you will need to try to work through in India, which best fits the culture of people. Yes. It is true to say that some of the technical aspects of even management learning and behavioral learning can be done remotely, but there comes a point in time when you will need to bring groups of people together, maybe in teams, in team environment with team working exercises to get the softer skills tested and developed. So we are using that type of approach. I think it's the sort of approach you will need to have in India. We work less by rote. My experience in India is that there's quite a lot of rote, what we call rote, classroom teaching. The tutor tells everybody and they all sit and listen. We've got a blend of learning where we give groups of people an exercise, yes, and then you've got to work together and develop all of those interpersonal skills. So I think some of that is what you would want to try and do in India, yes. And what we are doing is actually recording lots of things and giving feedback. So when people are when people are in a meeting or doing an exercise or we are recording things so we can play back and talk to them. So the tutor can say, look, actually, you did that in these circumstances. That didn't quite work out so well. Yes. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So it's developing different techniques, not just for the learners, but actually for the tutors as well. Yes.
Great.
Thank
you.
Arvind, can I add on to something that Graham said?
Please.
Just kind of build on that.
Very much. Yes.
I think so we need to understand that technology infusion into learning pedagogies is here to stay. So it will become an integral part of the design. But this COVID infused situation, I think we need to understand that there is perhaps a finite timeline when mankind will find an antidote for this. And while life might never become what it was as of December 31st of 2019, but I don't think we're going to live in an eternal world of isolation. So organizations will invest money where they believe that bringing people together enhances their learning and appreciation of concepts, and where ROI gets maximized because of people coming together. I think it's a matter of time before we will come back to that kind of a situation, albeit there might be some social guidelines that we might have to follow. But I firmly believe that wherever required, I think people coming together physically would happen in future someday, when we have an antidote, when the sense of fear and helplessness is taken over by something where we are more reassured and we feel in control. But organizations will become smarter till then. They will know what can be handled remotely, what can be handled through online learning, and what needs a physical collaboration in a simulated environment. So I think to that extent, learning design will get changed. But I think we are not yet at doomsday. I think it's a matter of time before we will see some sort of people coming together wherever we see enhancement of effectiveness. I think that will happen. It's a matter of time, but.
Good, Arun. Thank you. And that relieves us to a great extent. Over.
I am one of you, so I want to be relieved as well, right?
Yeah. Well, over to Dr. Gangadharan now. Bye. Dr. Gangadharan, please.
Poonam, would you have some questions for Arun?
Yes.
Okay. 1 minute before. Just a minute. Can you hold on for a minute?
Yeah.
Let's ask. Is Nataraj ready?
Yes, sir, ready, sir.
Can you?
Yeah.
Would you like? Yeah. Before Poonam, you ask questions. Nataraj Ray is the president of the ISTD. You wanted to say hello to you?
Yeah. So actually, good evening. It is though it is my welcoming address, but due to technology, I cannot do it. Due to net is not working, the system is down. So I welcome Mr. Arun Roth, Graham Hastings, Evans, and Ronald McKinley. So wonderful discussion is going on, and ISTD is grateful for all of you. And discussion is going on. And the close of the discussion, I'll take one or two questions, sir. So, sir, you arrange for this a wonderful discussion, and we carry on, sir, discussion. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Now, yeah. Poonam, can you carry on? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. I think I can see, many participants from education community, and many of us who are from management institutions, and as I'm also from a management institution, we have this dilemma actually. So one of the aspect of learning is internship, and all our students look for this internship period where they can go this practical aspect of learning. And in this situation, especially this year when they were supposed to go for summer internship and they're not able to do that now, I just want to hear from the experts or from the practitioners that how this situation can be handled, like how it can be compensated rather. What can be done if they cannot go for this practical learning, and we feel that they can do some online certifications rather than going for internship. This is actually not the compensation for that. So how it can be compensated from practitioners' point of view?
Hey, that question was for me?
Yes.
Or for everybody?
This is to you, Arun.
See, I told you that you should do one better than Arvind, and you should answer also. But you didn't listen. See, first of all, I think my heart goes out for the students who were due to do the internship during this period. I firmly believe that there is one group of students in B schools, and for a minute I'm not talking about the E schools right now. There's one group of students in B schools who come in as freshers and enroll for an MBA program. And for them, this internship exposes them to what organizations are all about. What does a day in the office look like? They get more anchored to realities. They also pick up a few tips from practicing managers. And to that extent, I think they have been left in the red when they have not been able to get into internships this particular summer. This is not such a big or such a bad deal for about 50 or 60%. I don't remember the demographic profile of the entering batches of these schools, where about 40 to 50% of students actually come with past work experience. So this whole thing about organizational awareness and that part of the learning, I think it's something which is not good, but they are not that worse off as the fresher community who have enrolled in these schools. So that's one part of it. But if you look at it in another fashion, there are many companies which have honored their internships and deployed the internships in a remote manner, where the student continues to get engaged with the organization, but does so remotely. And in that sense, I think the student is getting a flavor of what the organization of today and of a likely tomorrow. What is it going to be? Which is managing virtual relationships, because the company has not cut down on the commitment towards assigning a buddy, allocating a problem, giving the resources that are required for assimilation of knowledge, and doing that project in a manner which is serving the interests of both the student and the organization. So to those who have managed to continue with their internship, I think other than the fact that they are not physically present in the campus, which is true for every other employee, I think nothing has really changed. But those who have not made it, my heart goes out for them. Now, is this experience, can you have a surrogate by doing a certification? I don't think so. You can, for your administrative convenience, because many of you guys might be enrolled with a UGC or AICT or whatever, and there might be some minimum credits that people need to have. You can come in with a stopgap arrangement saying that whatever is the functional certification, the lowest hanging certification in their functional area, they do it and you give them 2 credits that you would have given for the internship. And the sum total of the credits will make them eligible to get their degrees next year and walk away. So that's something that you guys can think through and do it for the students, and they can do it either in September, October, or now or whenever. And they will become eligible to get their degrees at the end of their course. But that experience and that exposure that they would have got through the internship model cannot be replaced by a certification. That's my humble belief, and I'm more than happy to be corrected in that. But it was a long winding answer. I kind of segmented people. I also told you that there are a bunch of people who are continuing to experience internship, although in a different manner. And I firmly believe that the richness of an internship cannot be replaced by acquisition of a certification.
Yeah.
Just a minute. I just want to pass on something very, I think Dr. T.V. Rao has made some points. One is, he says, managing internship without anyone helping you is the best education B schools can have. This has to be managed entrepreneurially by institutes. That's the first answer. The second one is also said in his TBR learning school, he took 3 students and providing them an excellent opportunity to learn by attaching each one to one of our staff. I think this is something, perhaps, Poonam's question, that's one intervention that's come. The second thing that I want to ask you, I think Professor Veermani has been asking, I think has come, question probably to all of you, whether robots will take over the role of trainer. Okay. Now I think we'll probably, Poonam, you take over the second question and probably one of them can answer this or all of them can answer this.
Yeah, so what do you think, all of you, that robots can take over the job of trainers?
No, I don't think so. Although I know some students think trainers are robots, but I just don't think that's possible. I think part of the learning experience is about the human beings, yes, and their interrelationships and all the soft skills that come with learning and skills development, which they ultimately will need in the workplace. So no, I don't think that's possible. I don't think an internship can be replaced by something online, like Arun said. We have similar challenges here of people starting on traineeships or apprenticeships, and what we're trying to do is the government is trying to work with the major employers and the trade unions to reschedule these events, yes, so that the people don't completely miss out of them, but they perhaps do them at a different time. That is what we're trying to do, yes. It's an imperfect solution. Accept that, because some people have been disrupted and you can't change what's happened over the last 7 or 8 weeks. It's happened, but what we can do is try to mitigate, and we are trying to mitigate by finding alternative times to do the sort of in the workplace section of their courses. Yeah.
Sorry, one more. Just want to tell you, Akhil Busrai, one of our eminent persons, has said, I have a small setup net that I've taken 3 summer interns. Serious projects in review with rigor. This is what he says he's doing in his firm. Arun.
No, I once again, Dr. Gangadharan, I think even if it sounds repetitive, I think it's such a great respect to be on a panel where you're the likes of the names that you just shared, that I'm able to share my opinion with those eminent people. So thanks a lot for that. I'm just going back to the question about robots replacing humans, and I fully agree with Graham. However, I think the scenario that I talked about, where we were talking about using technology to simulate learning, if it comes to mechanical workshop training, it is possible that the demonstrator could turn out to be a robot instead of a human being. But then please marry that with my earlier comment that technology will come at a price. That robot has to be at a price point cheaper than the individual. Only then organizations will embrace that kind of technology. But robots, as IT companies know them, which are bots, which are software, which manage repetitive tasks, I think it's a matter of time before we see them embedded in learning programs. How people use them to design and execute learning curriculum remotely, there would be these bots that will come in. But if you see robots as those pieces of iron and steel walking in a very funny fashion on the floor, if you're thinking something like that, I think it's still far away. I don't see them coming very soon.
So this is Ron. I agree with both what Graham and Arun have said about that. However, I do believe that in the long run, artificial intelligence is going to have a much greater role in training development than it does today. And whether or not, we think about robots in my mind is in the science fiction viewpoint, like Robbie the robot and all those types of things. I think, yeah, that's a long way in the distant future. However, we do know that great strides are being made in artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence can be embedded in many, I think, training approaches. And I think there needs, as far as internships and your apprentice types of programs. Let's face it, physician training, for instance, that's an apprenticeship. Sure, you go to the classroom and you learn all of the anatomy and all those types of things, but you really learn how to be a physician by working with other physicians and practicing with them in really what is what I call a traditional apprenticeship approach. So I don't think robots are going to take the place of those people that have to interact with other people to teach them how to do things. However, I think AI will be instrumental in the future, and then simulations will be used a lot. However, there still need to be people associated with simulations to manage the simulation itself, to whatever equipment that needs to take place. And we know that people can learn quicker in simulations because they can't wait, for instance, to see an operation performed that's almost never performed anymore, if you will, in certain parts of the world. But through a simulation, they can learn how to do these things with the proper coaching and mentoring from a real human being.
Yeah, thank you all. And I think I'm getting a lot of responses for that particular question about internship, even from participants. So thank you all for that. But this one concern still is there, that they're going to miss that presence of practitioners. So what they were going to learn from the practitioners, and by shadowing them and all, that is still missing. Though they are, even in our institution, they are doing different kind of online internship programs and all. But that is something which is not still compensated. So Dr. Gangadharan, if I am allowed, I can go for the next question, or is it done?
I just want, in between, I'm telling you. Now, there is one question that's come up from Dr. Rajeshwari, for our past president. It take up the question on mental well-being and role of training and development as a, mental well-being and training and development as an important aspect.
Yeah,
so maybe when they are answering that, all of them can answer.
So I also saw a few comments from participants about psychological aspect and mental well-being and all. I think my second question is related with that area. So it's not only specific to the L&D community. All the panelists are HR experts as well. So it's more about more for the HR community. So whereas in past, or just before starting this COVID-19 situation, we were all, the whole HR was considering to be, strategic partner, technology experts, analysts, analytics as part of HR. But still, if you see employee as a lay person, they still see HR department as counselors, as coach, as mentors. So HR is still known for the human touch and support role for employees. So in this new situation where the new normal is working from home and social distancing is going to be part of future workplace, how HR is going to create still that human touch or support role for employees? How do you think technology is going to fulfill that gap?
Can I go first?
Yeah, it's
with
fine.
Permission of Ron and Graham, and I will localize it to India. I think, in my mind, nothing has changed from that angle. I think, as HR practitioners, we still continue. We have to strive to be strategic partners to business. We have to ensure that our businesses rebound as fast as they can. We have to ensure that businesses take care of all the stakeholders who are part of the game, including employees. I, for one, personally believe that a true successful HR person, whichever sub-channel that person belongs to, is somebody who marries business partnership with employee advocacy. And that's precisely the reason why you said that people see us. I'm happy that people continue to see us as mentors, coaches, because my worry is people see HR as transactional agents, right? So if people see us as coaches and mentors, I think nothing has changed. In fact, I think the opportunity to impact people has increased. The only thing that is different is that today you will not have the luxury of taking the person along with you into a meeting room, keeping a bottle of water and a set of napkins, which is a standard SOP for a counseling session, right? And then allow the person to kind of talk to you, become vulnerable, and then you help him out. I think you have to understand, how do you manage a virtual discussion? You will still continue to do all the things that you did to create that relationship with the individual, help him become vulnerable, talk to him, help him sort out his issues. You are not going to solve the problem for him. You're going to help that person understand his problems and find solutions. And that is why if you remember, I made a brief mention of this. Actually, things have started happening in that. It's just that today, a particular subgroup of the HR fraternity is doing it. People who are professional counselors, whether they are retained counselors, whether they're playing the role of counselors, or they are EAP. They have started this in terms of engaging with people virtually. People have problems. In fact, the problems have magnified because of the fact that they don't have co-workers to talk to now. The social relationships at workplace have taken a beating. Therefore, the psychological stress that people are feeling is increasing. Their need to reach out to this particular part of our professional expertise is enhancing. The only thing we need to do is we need to master the ability to manage virtuality while building these relationships. And I'm happy that you believe that people think us as mentors and coaches. And this is the opportunity which we can leverage. And we can, in fact, I don't know which study, but one of the studies said that one of the most rare skills that will be there in organizations 10 or 15 years down the line will be the ability to relate to people. And HR professionals will be in demand that day. All you need to do is don't lose your DNA and pad yourself up with mastery of technology.
So we go to Ron. Ron?
Yeah, so as we all know that people are social beings. And one of the issues is that it is difficult, or if you're communicating with someone, in order to get to know somebody, you have to spend time with them. And spending time with them, the quality of that time, I think, at least to my mind, is extremely important. That in order to really get to know someone, and we all know, nobody knows me unless I let them know me. you know, and because we know what we know, but we don't share that with others. Most of our knowledge is tacit knowledge. We keep it to ourselves. We'd be happy to share it if somebody asks us a question, or if a situation presented itself in which it seemed to be that would be applicable in order to share that knowledge. And the same thing is true with sharing ourselves, who we are, what we really think, how we feel about things. So I believe that there is there's a significant psychological impact for people being distanced from other people and not having the opportunity to actually interact and to see the body language that occurs during these interactions. So for instance, let's say that you're having a session with your psychologist because you're feeling depressed about the way things are going with COVID-19 or whatever it might be. And we know that that's a very real problem for many people. That's a very real aspect of life for them. If you're doing that through a remote approach on the telephone, and if it's just on the telephone, you don't even see anyone. So it makes it very difficult to see how people actually react and how they are actually feeling with regard to that issue that's there that they have. Does that make sense? So I think there needs to be work done with regard to how we're going to try to make these human connections, if you will, virtually. We're going to be living in a more virtual world, even if we get back to what we might call the previous normal, where COVID-19 has been conquered and we have, you know, the proper vaccines and treatments and all those types of things, and it becomes something more like the common cold, which would be a very happy event. But COVID-19 is not the only thing, because we've mentioned before the trend towards remote work had already begun, and was that train had left the station a long time ago. And by the way, that's becoming a bullet train. It's not your local, you know, excursion train where it stops at every stop. This is a rapidly moving thing, and it's going to continue to evolve as we move through time, because it's an efficient way of doing things. And economics does drive much of what happens in the world and human interaction. But we still need, I think, strive in how we're going to try to bridge that gap. And I think it's a very real gap between how you connect with people virtually versus how the much more social aspect of actually connecting face to face and really spending the time and getting to know people.
Would Graham like to say something?
Yes. I think we've got to cope with the COVID lockdown period, and I think there's a set of actions certainly we are doing, which is about trying to keep in contact with our staff. We have daily mindfulness and well-being sessions open to all the staff, quarter of an hour to half an hour each lunchtime, even though people are working remote. So we've been adopting a number of sort of activities to try to mitigate some of the negativeness about the remote working. I feel ultimately, and that includes staff briefings. If you were going to have a one-to-one with somebody, you do it, but you have to do it through Teams, but you still do it. You might have team briefings until you still do it. But we are hoping to move towards a situation whereby if the incident of COVID-19 is low and we can have a safe working environment, then we will get people together. Perhaps not as often as they were together previously, but we will need to get people together so that we do have a situation where people can develop the human relationships. We can't stay living on MS Teams forever, despite perhaps Microsoft's adverts. You know, that's not sustainable for us as a species, but we will just use it more, and we will have to use some mitigating techniques, which we're trying in our company, because we are concerned that staff will feel disempowered, cut off. They don't meet their friends. They can't turn around in the office for a cup of coffee and talk about football or well, in your case, cricket, but we don't talk about cricket anymore because you're better at it than we are. But people need that sort of social, but we're trying to get people to do a bit of that on Teams. but it isn't the same as the sort of being physically in a place. And we do want to get to a situation where we can have people back working in our offices and in our colleges and our trainings, but not as packed in as they were. So I don't think it's an easy journey to make, but we mustn't think we're going to be locked in the COVID world forever. But the world we go into is going to be different. It will have changed.
Okay, I think it's beyond time, just 15 minutes beyond time. If Nadraj would like to make any statement, then no, Mike.
Sir, I have one question to the Ron, senior CHRO. Sir, I have one question to senior CHRO Ron. What will be the role of HR professional after COVID-19 for sustain the business as well as the employee and stakeholders? What will be the role of the HR, all three stakeholders?
That's a good question. I think the role of the HR, if you think about let's for instance, the HR function itself is evolving. Everybody knows that it began after the Industrial Revolution, and these large corporations, people moved from farms, if you will, from agricultural environments to manufacturing environments. So in the accounting function, they had to start counting people and actually know what their names were and those types of things. So HR has evolved. And I think HR in the long run becomes a very strategic function. Of course, you're going to have this work that has to be done, the transactional work that Arun mentioned and those types of things. But a lot of that work can be automated and done. Actually, AI can do a lot of that type of stuff now. And I think you're going to find that more in the future. But HR becomes more of a strategic, if you will, function, and there will be lots of mentoring and lots of coaching that takes place, but also managing the if you will, in the world today, there are only two forms of capital that mean anything: money capital and human capital. And if you have money, then you can get the other stuff you need. You can hire people and all that. And if you have good human capital, guess what? You can get money. And but the bottom line is no organization exists without human capital. So I think our HR over time evolves into the function of actually managing the human capital that is necessary for work to get done and results to be produced and for society to benefit. And I think that's the long run, the long range role of that. And then a lot of the so-called busy work, if you will, transactional stuff will over time continue to will be done more and more by be automated and be done by using AI. And I think that will then free people up to do what they can really do, to use their creativity to ensure that people are able to be productive and psychologically well balanced throughout their work life.
Thank you, sir.
I think thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I think we have to somewhere conclude, but let me tell you, I enjoyed for a long time listening to all of you.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful to have everyone really giving a lot of inputs, and I was very happy to see Arun saying that come on, let me talk first. Very nice to have that comment coming in. And Ron, thanks for taking time in the early morning on a weekday to be with us, particularly practicing with all the Indians. They all enjoyed it. I'm sure we are going to put these papers together and send it across to you in the next few weeks' time. Very interesting. Graham, thanks for knowing you, and you gave a lot of inputs. And also thank Arvind for really making it. He wanted to ask whether this whole conference is going to be talking only about COVID. I think all of you have said about future of the COVID as well. Future after COVID. Very nice to see that. And nice to have two young ladies coming in to part of the responding team. Very nice to have them. I'm very keen that we should have in future at least 50% ladies coming on these panels. They can also contribute a lot. And thanks to Nadraj for being with us in a very interesting session. And please I would like to thank Joshi and particularly, our friend Gurvinder Singh. Yeah, Gurvinder Singh really did a good job. Thanks a lot, Gurvinder. Gurvinder is the one who's behind the scene. He did everything for us in the last 1 week's time. Huge number of participants have come, and I'm very sure a lot of questions have come. We are going to definitely get back to you. And I want to tell you, Ron, Graham, and Arun, we are probably not going to spare you. We are going to get back to you with some more seminars following up this. so that we complete our task. And Dr. T.V. Rao has really given a lot of inputs on the notes. They're very interesting to go through. I'm sure we'll follow it up with a few more seminars and keep the time free for us at least 2 hours once a month.
Yeah.
And we'll have more speakers from outside India coming in as well. Thanks a lot once again.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Joshi,
everyone.
Mr. Joshi, she is the director of the ISTD.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank everyone
Yeah.
who has joined and made us a beautiful presentation and the future of HR. In
Yeah.
fact, as I feel that everyone in the audience was very curious to know what the future of HR is going to be. Thank you very much, Ron, Graham, Arun. It was very, very good.
Yeah.
And in fact, the way he brought out things and with the minute of the details and the way the industry is going on. We had the academic point of view as well as the industry point of view from the shop floor. So that was really reassuring for the HR guys who were present in this. And I'm extremely thankful to T.V. Rao ji, Mr. Akhil Bosrai, Rajeshwari Narendran, all our past presidents, chairpersons, everyone who has joined and made this webinar meaningful and purposeful. On behalf of ISTD National Headquarters, I'm extremely thankful to you, and thanks and goodbye.